Well guys, in the previous video we have seen that how we are directly making use of this product validator, the one which is been derived from an abstract validator, which is coming from the Fluent Validator to validate the model. Now we have done this for one single endpoint, but what if that like we want to write a validator in such a way that it should work for any post or put endpoint for any model. So how we are going to do that? So there is a mechanism which has been offered to us by the Fluent Validator is to uh, create the endpoint filter. So we do have an extension method called as the add endpoint filter, which is of the type route handler builder, and the one which allows us to write the logic where what we want to do to handle the request and filter the request, that we can do it here. So let me go back to the solution explorer here, and then there is a folder that I do have the custom filters, and then I do have the model validator filter here. So the class model validation filter, the generic class which is implementing endpoint filter. Here I do have the constants for the generic, where I say T model is a class. So this is gonna use the class. This model validation filter. Here we are having the constructor injection for the validator, right? We do have that. So this will be resolved over there. So that is been already registered over here with this line. Builder.services.add scope validator product info. This has already been done over there. Well, now let me go back again. I'm going to put a breakpoint on this, and then this endpoint filter gives me a method invoking which has two parameters: the endpoint filter invocation context and endpoint filter delete. The invocation context or endpoint filter invocation context, this is the part of our HTTP channel execution, which provides an access of an HTTP context with the help of which we can read the request. Here we intend to read the HTTP request. That's why here that we need context.http context.request.body, because we try to read, or we want to read the HTTP request body so that the data can be validated from that. The second parameter, that is endpoint filter delegate, which is the one that is responsible to execute the necessary logic for the filtration and keep moving in the sense that keep on executing the filters over there. Okay, that's what it is. So now what we are trying to do in this invoking method is that, like, first of all, we are reading the data from the body. Now what we need to do for this: context.http context.request.body, and this is of the type stream, so we need to read the stream data from the body. But how we are going to do that? So we are supposed to inform this to the HTTP context to an ASP.NET Core host, saying that, okay, hey ASP.NET Core, I want to read the body. So for that, in a program.cs, please listen carefully guys, in a program.cs, what we need to do is that we need to configure the middleware here. So app.use context next, and here I say context.request enable buffering. So with the help of this, what we are going to achieve is that we will be able to read the body. If we don't add this, then the body will be read as empty, and which is not a good idea, because we want to read the body explicitly. That's why this is needed here. App.use, and then we are configuring the buffering over here so that we can read the contents of the body. So if we write this, then we will be able to read the body, and then whatever the data that is there in a body, we are going to deserialize the data. So of course that is our model data. We will deserialize it into the model object, and then it will be passed to the validate async method. Now from where this validate async method is coming? This validate async method is a part of my iValidator interface, which we are injecting over here. So in the current HTTP context, whatever the data that has been received, that data will be passed to this validate async method. So this validate async method will be executed for the product info validator over here, and then it will keep validating, verifying our model object based upon the validation rules. That's what is going to happen here. Now here in this case, if the data is not valid, then the errors, all the errors on each properties will be read, and then bad request response status code that will be generated, which will be written into the response. So context.http context.response write as JSON async, the one which is actually going to write the response. Okay, and then it will be written back. So this is what the model validation filter that we have written. It's a custom filter implementing the endpoint filter with the necessary logic into it. So this is an important part which will take care of performing the data validation. And see that this is completely generic. This means that any validator or any class which is derived from an abstract validator and taking that model object, it will work for that. So this is the advantage of it. Now going back here into the program.cs, of course the iValidator is registered, right? And then we have this model validator filter that has been applied on the another endpoint, that is a map post API/filter.product. Okay, so now let me put a breakpoint on that. Let me run this here. Okay, I just say F5 or continue. Post. Again, I'm gonna use the Pascal casing. Right, so I'll have product IDP capital M capital D here as well as the Pascal casing, because my model is in Pascal case. The properties from that, I'll say that M1 something and then something like that. Execute. So now here it is evaluating my injector, and then see that this is having the product info validator. This class has been injected. Right, my invoking method, and see that the body data which is been streamed right now, okay, which is been deserialized over here in the form of JSON. See that we have that JSON. Now this is possible because we have used the Pascal casing for the properties. If we don't use the Pascal casing for that, then it will be null. So make sure that you change the property names there in a request. So this will be check against the validation. So we are going to have the validation errors over there since we haven't passed the product name and category name. So here we are getting those error details. Okay, we are getting that. Let me close this, and then this is going to write the response on that. So I just say continue on this, right, and here we will see that error response again. Right, so now this will work for any model, right? We can create the filter, endpoint filter once, and then we can apply it on multiple different minimal endpoints. Okay, the best or the great feature of making a use of the minimal endpoints over here. So what we are doing is that the class which is implementing endpoint filter, it's a generic class that we are creating here because we want this to be used for any model class, provided that the model class is been passed as a type parameter, generic type parameter to the abstract validator, and that has the rules. Okay, and then the implementation of invoking method, where we are going to do the necessary, or we are going to write the necessary logic here to make sure that the validation takes place, And then finally we are applying that endpoint filter on the endpoint, and then that will be executed. So this is the mechanism of working with the data validations with minimal API with the help of the endpoint filter. Right, so that's a great feature, guys. Keep using it. Thank you very much.